I got to talk. I got to tell what I feel. I got to talk about my life as I see it. New York.
This is Mark Williams of FOOTPRINTZ Basketball, and you're now tuned to the podcast, The Mecca, New York City's Movers and Shakers. Earlier today, we had the opportunity to sit down with Dain Ervin of BR Reports. BR Reports is one of the premier scouting services in America, which boasts approximately 100 college subscribers to date. During our conversation, Mr. Ervin spoke about his beginnings, his ties to New York City, and its rich history. And we also spoke about New York City as a whole is it in decline. So sit back, give us approximately 60 minutes, and let's hear what Mr. Ervin has to say about New York City basketball, because he is a New York City mover and a shaker.
Hello, everyone. We are here on the phone with Dain Ervin of BR Report. Welcome to the Mecca, New York City movers and shakers, Mr. Ervin.
How you doing, sir? What's going on?
I can't complain. I have a couple questions for you, and hopefully you can help our listening audience out. What exactly is BR Reports?
Well, BR Reports stands for Basketball Illustrated Reports. Coming up in the late 80s, early 90s, there used to be so many outlets of different basketball information, whether it was Basketball Weekly. Of course, you had your Sports Illustrated, and you had your different things that basically informed you, Street and Smith, Sporting News, and Basketball Illustrated was just simple. I mean, it wasn't any direct correlation to any other companies. It was just something that I just kind of put together. But, I mean, the start of it, you know, it took longer than the last 4 years I had it. Actually, a gentleman by the name of Clarence Washington, when I was younger, maybe college years, even before college, he would always call me the Black Tom Kachowski. I mean, it's something he actually used to call me. And if you're from New York and you know who Tom Kachowski was, you know the imprint he had on the city. To be honest, at first, of course, I didn't like it because it's like not understanding the power that he held and the position that he held in New York as a young player. You don't want to be compared to some guy that's good at all the basketball games. However, right. It was more of a respect and a little bit of homage to me that at a young age, I always had a keen sense of the game and the history. And I'm big on the history of the game, of where it's been, where we are currently or whatever time it is, and where it can go going forward. And it kind of, you know, disappeared for a while. I kind of got away from it when I finished playing ball. I got away from basketball a little bit. And then back in 2011, I was at the Final Four. And the gentleman that I was with, we kept running into coaches that knew the both of us. So he at the time was like, well, you know, have you ever thought about being a scout? And I'm like, not really. You know, I've heard it randomly over the years. And I'm like, it's like, man, you know kids, you know players, you know what they look like at a young age. At an older age, you've played with former high school Americans that turned to pros and high school Americans that turned to high school, college All-Americans. You understand what it takes. It's not a hard job. And right. Of course, I blew it off and I didn't take it with real seriousness until that same night I ended up getting with another friend of mine. He said the same exact thing. And that's when it finally clicked that here it is, two people that don't know each other, for them to say the same thing, this is God talking to me. So right. I took it back to my hotel with me. I slept on it. And the first thing I did when I woke up is, how many coaches did I know that respected my basketball mind could I get to subscribe to my service? If I started a service. And when I finished with my list, I was at 27. This is before even hitting the road. This is the rich New York family and coaches that we have spread it throughout the country that I knew would be in support of me. And I said, okay, 27 schools, that doesn't sound bad. But then, of course, I had to measure it to some of the gentlemen that are out on the national scale doing it for particular companies. I have a fairly decent relationship with John Stovall from ESPN, and he's another African American gentleman. And when I saw him, the first thing I asked him, I said, "Well, you have your own service. How many schools did you start with?" And without stuttering or thinking about it, he knew. He said 7. So I was like, "Well, wow! Like, I mean, I'm already ahead of the curve, so to speak, before I even hit the road." So then I got my ducks in a row, as they would say. Saved every nickel, every dime, and my first year I hit the road. Covered all. Go ahead.
Yeah, man.
I covered the entire Nike circuit from the EYBL. I went down to Peace Jam. I went to Chris Paul's event, his Elite Guard camp. Went to Elite 100. Went out to Las Vegas. I covered the whole entire Las Vegas on my dime. Now, a good friend of mine who's actually a supporter of my service, Van Macon at Rutgers University, was probably one of the first people that said, "Well, send me an invoice." So at that time, I don't understand the business thoroughly and fully. So I'm like, "Send you an invoice," and he said, "Well, you want to get paid, right?" So then I was so entrenched in what I wanted to do and my passion for it, that I was covering all these places, and I wasn't thinking about getting paid. I was thinking about establishing my name as a credible individual in this business, because whether people understand it or not, African American people, people of minority background, we make up 95 to 98% of the players in the game. Yet we make up less than 1 or 2% in the decision makers in the business. When I say decision makers, I'm saying the evaluators, because whether people want to believe it or not, evaluators, people think it's shoe brands, but evaluators help schools kind of curve and dictate who they recruit. Because a lot of schools, evaluators are viewed in several ways, including myself, that we can be individuals that can be an asset to numerous schools, that we can get to events that schools cannot get to. The AAU season is from March to the end of July. Now that's 5 months. But in that 5-month span, college coaches can really only come out about 28 to 30 days.
Right.
So with that being said, they need trusted eyes. They need trusted opinions from people like myself at those events. So when Van asked me to, for the invoice, I looked into it, and I found out I had to apply to the NCAA for certification. Well, just my luck, the certification date had passed. So that whole entire year, I didn't get paid. Even with all the people that I knew, just doing it from a legal standpoint, they couldn't pay me if they wanted to. Because a lot of times when you have a subscription, you get it set up, you go through the, whether it's the athletic department or the university themselves, you set up vendor accounts in some school situations, or again, the athletic department pays you. But there's basically a paper trail. A school is not going to sign off and pay someone that doesn't have their paperwork in order. So it was a lesson learned, but at the same time, I didn't take it as a complete loss, because again, I was already in deep in the work where I wasn't looking to get paid, but I also knew that first year was going to help establish my writing style and my honesty on the players that I see. So after I got through the first year, of course, the second year I did get approved by the NCAA, and at that point, I had worked my way up to about 84 schools. I currently stand now at over 100, and I always tell I tell a good friend of mine, Tyrone Grant, all the time, I just wanted 100 schools. But when you become a demand, and when you people want your opinion on things, a price comes with that. So then you find yourself who people are willing to pay you now, because they want to hear what you have to say. They know you're going to cover all these events. I'm one of the few, if not only, national independent scout. And what I mean by independent, I don't have the luxury of a Rivals or 24/7 or ESPN, Sports Machine backing my bill. I do this on my own, myself, and really my wife, and we put it together, and I get where I need to get. But I do my job in the sense of being everywhere where their players are going to be. So I'm able to give, bringing it back to New York, I'm able to give an honest depiction of where we currently stand. And
before we get to that, I want to ask you, being as you are, I want to segue it, being as you are on the national scene, what do the national evaluators say about New York City basketball as a whole? What you're hearing?
Well, you have to understand that we did reign supreme for so long that we were on top. So you do get a growing animosity at times of, well, now they're not on top, and those that may be in power may not want to see us back on top. And I mean, I was pretty vocal on social media about a week ago with a gentleman who I'm good friends with, and we're cordial, and there's no issue, but it's just speaking our opinion of kids not getting acknowledged the way that they should. Right now, New York City, you know, is the home of arguably, not even arguably, he was the player of the summer in Raleigh Atkins. And right. Raleigh, everywhere Raleigh went, he was the best player on the court. Everywhere. There's only one player that I've seen this summer that even rivals him, and that's Frank Jackson, that everywhere they went, they were the best player on the court. Right. And the fact that Raleigh still isn't getting the acknowledgement that he should, it goes back to what I was saying about the resentment that some people may have with New York City and what we're putting out. You know, people may think it's just a flash in the pan. It'll go back down, as I've heard some people say, because you got to remember, it was a time where we were at a high level for a very long time. And it's history. And as New Yorkers, and as proud New Yorkers as many of us are, we don't let people forget that. We don't let people forget what the Yankees did. Even the sorry Knicks, which I'm not a fan of, we don't leave out that they won championships in the 70s.
In the 70s,
so when we do something, we do let people know about it. But on the basketball level, we've been down for such a long stretch, people are not letting us forget that.
Right.
So it's going to take a huge surge. Has it improved? Yes. But is it where it once was? No. It's not even close. As I speak with many of the historians of the city, like Tom, he gives a great point that the golden era probably in New York City was that kind of 87, 88 to 91, 92. Now, in that same time frame, New York City, not Long Island, not upstate, not Jersey, not the farthest from there, but no, New York City, the 5 boroughs. We pumped out 16 McDonald's All-Americans. And this is at a time where that game was the standard, as it should be, because it acknowledges the top high school players in America. In 3 years, we pumped out 16. Just to give you an understanding of where we are, that same criteria, New York City has only put out 15 in the last 15 years.
Wow, so we're averaging one a year on average?
If that. I mean, we've gone a couple years where we didn't get one. And I want to say, since the inception of the game, going up to 91, we had somebody from New York in the game.
Right.
So,
at least 1 year.
So exactly. So to go now where we're going that long of a stretch and putting out that many players, that alone shows you that it's not the same. And then when you start digging deeper, when you're looking at the CHSAA and the PSAL, it's just not the same. And it's many, as I spoke with a good friend of mine as well earlier today, Dana Dingle, we both agreed. It's a simple solution, I think, to fix this problem, but the execution of that solution is probably impossible. Because because the solution is going to require trust. And as New Yorkers, and just growing up in the concrete jungle, that may be one of the biggest deficiencies we all, at some point in our lives or at some point struggle with, and that's trust. That's trusting someone, whether it's your child, it's your nephew, it's your next door neighbor, it's a kid you watch grow up. Trusting someone else that you don't know to do right by something that you may love and that may be near and dear to your heart. So,
now when you say trust, now in which way can an AAU coach trust another AAU coach, or what levels of trust are you referring to?
Trust that it's going to put them in the best position. People have to understand, and this is not even, Dain Ervin and Basketball Illustrated making up a stat. This is a NCAA, as New York City would say, fact. This is a fact that less than 1% of high school seniors who play basketball will go to a Division I school.
Fact.
Then less than 1% of that group will receive a professional contract.
Yeah.
But 100% of high school seniors who go on to college can earn a college degree. So looking at the aim is first things first. Looking at what your goal and what your goal should be set should be your first order of business, because everyone is not going to be a pro.
Right.
I seen Talik Brown, who you work with every day, from when he was 5, 6 years old, grow into a high school All-American, a collegiate champion, has a very good resume. He was not an NBA player, but he does have his degree.
Right.
He does have his degree. So in many factors, people have to understand what the true goal is. And as a parent, if you have a child that takes a liking to basketball, the first and number one goal should be getting a free education. I was taught, fortunately, by Vincent Smith, Pierre Turner, and rest in peace, Leslie Lance, from Corona, New York, by St. Gabriel's in East Elmhurst. And they never talked about the NBA. Keep in mind, those three gentlemen, they coached 3 NBA players.
Right.
Leslie Lance had Derek Phelps. Vincent Pierre had Kenny Anderson and Kenny Smith. Never once growing up did they ever talk about the NBA. Never. I remember like it was clockwork. Every September when we got in the gym and working on our game, Pierre Turner would come with a basketball and he would put a pin in the ball and he would let the air go out.
Mm-hmm.
And he would pass it around, whether it was the kids that we were always coming to work out every September or whether it was new kids that came in the gym. And his question he would always ask is, this day is going to come. Will you be prepared for it? Of course, when you're saying this to a 9, 8-year-old, 10-year-old, right, you're looking at this dude like, what is he doing? This guy's crazy. But as you got older, it started to resonate what he was getting at. What is your plan going to be the day that you cannot no longer play basketball? And he stressed the fact of education. So in the Aim High family, you had Pierre, who was a judge. He stressed education. Mm-hmm. Now, he loved basketball with the best of them, but education was his thing. And he tutored and mentored many, many great players who, it wasn't ironic that they all got their education.
Right.
From Jamal Phillips, who went down to Rutgers, Daniel Abrams, you name it, Pierre was right there for them. And he still is to this day. That's why I love the judge, because to this day, he's still there. Vince as well, his brother was Kenny Smith, college All-American, lottery pick, NBA champion. He was a huge part of Kenny Anderson's life. He never talked about the pros. He just wanted to see guys get better. So when I say the trust that has to come from New Yorkers themselves, it's going to the right avenues of who can help your child or loved one. That if you want to be an All-American, Talik Brown's phone should be ringing off the hook. If you want to know what it takes to lead the country in scoring and playing the NBA, Charles Jones' phone should be ringing off the hook. If even my guy Tyrone Grant, if you want to know how it is to take a role at a major university, be one of the leaders on the team that goes to an Elite Eight appearance, and then have a successful over 15-year career playing overseas basketball. My good friend Tyrone Grant should be getting that same call.
Right.
But it's amazing that in the basketball community, and especially New York, you have so many people that will reach out to people that don't have an idea of what the next step is. You don't see plumbers going to electricians trying to ask them about the piping in their home.
Right.
A plumber's going to go seek another plumber. When carpentry needs to be done, you don't go to the opinion of a landscaper. So I don't understand why is it, and really in the basketball community around the country, because I currently live in Houston, Texas, that same issue is down here as well. That why is it only in basketball? We go to all the outside factions to get basketball answers when we have basketball resources to get those answers.
Right. And back to the trust issue, you're thinking or that AAU Team B wouldn't necessarily send anyone to Khalid Charles, Ty Grant, because they would lose control over them, or they just don't trust Tyrone Grant or whomever that person may be?
All that's together. That's a great point as well, because my whole thing is, if the goal is getting this kid to college, then why are you not going to talk to people that haven't gone to college? And there's no knock to players that haven't gone to college. Don't get it twisted. Vincent Smith wasn't a magna cum laude graduate from college. Kevin Jackson, who also coached me as well, Artie Cox, Kenny Pretlow, these weren't, Ivy League grads. However, that's one thing that I definitely want to bring up that I think is also missing from the New York piece in what happened. Many of our great teachers are either no longer with us or they are no longer in New York. That first generation that they taught and that went away to college and things of that nature never came back. Not to a detriment, but I'll give you an example. Kevin Simmons grew up in Brooklyn, played at Tilden, played with Riverside. He was taught, had great coaches coming up in the 90s. He went away to UNLV. When he graduated from UNLV, he transplanted to Atlanta. He has a school. He's doing a great thing. He's thriving in Atlanta. However, Kevin didn't go back to Brooklyn.
Right.
So now that void in Brooklyn is now being filled by a handler, by an influencer, by someone who feels they know what it takes but didn't necessarily go through it.
Right.
Now, over time, if they're doing the right thing, yes, but that same person is not going to trust another person and tell them what to do, because now, that pride, that machismo of, man, I know what I'm doing, don't tell me what to do, and there you have the issue. But it's not just with Kevin Simmons. You got Jamal Robinson, who started at Virginia. He lives in Virginia now. He was from South Jamaica. Rich Ashme, he taught Gerald Bayless everything he knows, got him to the NBA. Rich Ashme played at UConn. He's in Arizona. Right. He's no longer in New York. Stacey Castle, one of the greatest scorers PSAL's ever seen. He's in Atlanta, Georgia. And then that's not even talking about the numerous guys on the college level that's not on the quote-unquote grassroots rec center level helping these kids in the gym every day. And that's Kamada Young. That's Emmanuel Richardson at Arizona. So that huge void, that next generation that was taught by Gil Reynolds, that was taught by Mr. Couch, Abadab from South Jamaica, Dave McCullough, Dave Jones, Dermot Player, Pierre, Vince, all those guys are not in New York. So that level of teaching, like there are very few teachers out there. And again, I know you're in the gym. I know Talik's in the gym. I know Charles is in the gym. I know Dana Dingle's in the gym. But it's unfortunate the number of kids that are not going to you guys to learn. Now, one of the biggest issues I think that's being left out, and this is no blame to any particular person, but the business has had a huge influence on New York as well as grassroots as a whole around the country. Because all those great men that I just named, they all have one thing in common when it came to basketball. And I'm not stepping on you or Team Footprint's toes when I say this. They didn't charge anything.
They're for free. I agree.
They didn't charge anything. Now, it could be looked at as halfway full or halfway empty. They could look at it halfway empty to say, well, that's their fault. They missed out on it. Or they could look at halfway full that, look, those gentlemen that I named probably produced more professional players through their teaching than any time in New York City. Like, there are very, very few teachers that are taking kids that could not play and making them players in the entire New York City right now.
Oh, I agree with that, without a doubt.
You know what I'm saying? So that lack of teaching, because keep in mind, and I don't want to leave out great people too, like Dr. Naselli and Ziggy in Brooklyn as well as Tippy. Those guys were pillars in each borough or each section of their borough. So when you have, okay, you got Vincent Pierre in Queens, more so Left Right City area, Queensbridge. South Jamaica, you got Aberdeen. One part of Brooklyn, you got Gil Reynolds.
Gil, right.
Another part, you got Sid Jones. You got Lower East Side, you got Dr. Naselli. When you go venture uptown, you got Derman Player. You got Dave McCullough when he was on the Riverside side. But then when you got the Dave McCullough on the Gaucho side, along with Dave Jones, these are all great people that in every area that they were teaching. They were teaching the sciences of the game that the city cannot get right now.
Right.
And I don't know. I can't. Even if you guys wanted to, I can't flood all you guys as well. Because it's like, I'm sure it would be great for business, but you, Talik, and Charles can only deal with so many guys at one time.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? Like, someone else in the Lower East Side says, you know what? I take on that same challenge. I'm going to take 25, 50 kids from the Lower East Side. Then someone from uptown, Spanish Harlem area said, well, you know what? I'm going to take another 50. And then someone up in the Washington Heights side, well, you know what? I'll take 40. Someone in the South Bronx going to say, you know what? I got 50. Another side of the Bronx, I'm going to take, you know what I'm saying? Like, it's going to have to be a collective responsibility. I used the word with you last night that whether people want to believe it or not, like, if you're in that mid to late 30s, early 40s, mid 40s, like, we're the new gatekeepers now. Like, we're the new gatekeepers of New York. So if we want to get it right or get it to where it once was, we have to accept where we're not. And what can we do to get it back right where we want it? I mean, I pose the question to yourself and any listeners out there. When was the last time New York had the number one point guard in the country?
Sebastian Telfair.
How many years ago was that?
Probably 03, 04. What year is it? 12 years ago, maybe?
That's crazy.
And
that's crazy.
For?
If anything we're known for, it's going to be point guards. If there's anything we're known for. You know, and then I think people forget, too, and it's not even just a grassroots level. Like, when New York reigned supreme, it was every level. It was every level. It wasn't just AAU. It just wasn't high school. It was the pros.
Yeah.
We had people on every level that, like, yo, he's from New York. Yo, he's from New York. Yo, he's from, like, I remember times with Riverside Church, we walked in the gym and, like, people stopped and stared. Because just that tag alone is like, yo, they from New York. People now, like, they from New York, oh, we gonna smack them by 40. Like, people not even looking twice. Like, so what? Like, it was nothing to fear. Like, I mean, come on, like, and people know what it was. Like, whether you was with Riverside Church with the gold and navy blue shirt with the hawk on the back, or the red shirt with the yellow one with the yellow hawk on the back, people knew what it was. Same thing with the gauchos. If you had the gauchos across your chest, like, that meant something. I think the level of pride is also for representing New York is not at an all-time high.
Right.
But I think that comes with, again, people not knowing their past. Like, I knew my history, again, we're talking the 90s. This is way before the internet. You know, good friend of mine, Tyler Brown, when I was a freshman, and he had the clip and he sent it to me, you know, via phone of me at the game. You know, McClancy was playing St. Raymond. And, I mean, I wasn't playing. But, again, I heard about Kareem Reed. I heard about Tyler Brown, Eric Harris. I wanted to see this because I know what I saw from Jamal Robinson every day.
Right.
So I wanted to see the best versus the best. So as a young student of the game, I was there in the flesh. You don't get that no more.
Right.
You don't get kids when they hear that Riley Aikens is the best and they're a player in their own right and respect. They go to Riley Aikens games. Like when Kenny Anderson played, it was other bad mofos in the crowd to see him play as well.
I remember in the gym, Tom would always say, yeah, I went and saw Skip play. I went and seen this kid play. I remember being 12 years old, seeing Dave Evans at IS8.
Come on, man.
When Khalid played Bobby Hurley at IS8.
Come on, man.
Every game.
I never forget it when Rafer Alston was making a name in one of the very few high school games he actually played. I'm walking from Left Rack City to Forest Hills High School when Kamani was in high school to see Cardozo play Forest Hills. We trying to sneak in. We getting chased away because at that time, violence in school was raising and, you know, security was on a heightened level. We trying to sneak in a game.
High school game.
In a high school game. Like, these are things that I remember. Rafer and Stephon having the shootout. They used to have the Final Four at St. John's, Alumni Hall. Rafer and Steph having a shootout in between games. And, like, going at it. And the crowd getting into it like, yo, look at who is these two kids?
Right.
Now, whether it was strategically designed or someone had the foresight, who knows? Probably did. But at the end of the day, you go to games now, like, it's not about the empty parks. You know, I keep hearing that argument, oh, the parks is empty, oh, it's too many. It's not that. It's just like defense. At some point in time, a person has to sit down, or a group of individuals have to sit down and say, look, not how we're going to fix this. This is how we're going to fix this. And if people are not willing to do it, it's not going to be fixed. So that's why I said it's a very easy solution, but the execution of that solution is damn near impossible.
I would agree with that.
It's impossible. It's impossible. The best analogy I can give, and I give it to many of the country people that I've worked with and I live around, they use the term, we all know it's a horse and carriage.
Mm-hmm.
But the term that they always use is that many people want the carriage before the horse. And I think in the grassroots scene and in New York City, many people want the carriage before the horse. They don't want to go through the work. You know, people have the fact that you have to talk to someone before talking to a kid's parent about what you have to offer them, and that's the new growing phenomenon in New York, is like unbelievable.
Right.
The handler phenomenon is unbelievable. And the fact that the people that are handling take offense to someone calling them a handler is a whole nother hilarious makeup as well. Like, don't call me a handler. Like, exactly, but that's exactly what you're doing. Like, it makes no sense. And none of it is done being pure. You know, I had a phase in my life where I played with Riverside and I played with Amon. I didn't have someone in between saying, yo, you're going to do this. No. I made a decision.
A basketball broker?
I didn't have a broker. I'll be the first to tell you, I went through many, I was cursed out many times. And it wasn't abuse, and my parents approved. if I deserved it because I was wrong, whatever may have. But they never stepped in and said anything to him. But Pierre Turner gave me many tongue lashes. Kevin Jackson called me everything ungodly under the sun. But it was still my decision whether I was going to play with Riverside or play with Aim High. That's just a decision. It wasn't no need for anyone in between.
So let me go back to something I want to always bring up, and you mentioned it. The parents, are they disillusioned as far as the expectations of their son or daughter? More so son than daughter.
I don't think they are, but I think, now this is where the handlers get bad, is that they're not informing parents the proper way. They're not informing parents on what the actual goal is. Everyone is not going to go to the NBA.
Right.
Every year, there are only 30 guaranteed openings in the NBA. Are there a couple more from the second round? There are. But just because your child can run, jump, dunk, or you have a couple schools calling your child does not mean your child is going to the NBA. But again, when I mentioned that the business of grassroots basketball has ruined it countrywide, when you see numbers flashed up, like I think we take, and everyone is guilty of this. We don't appreciate numbers. People talk about millions like it's $10. People talk about millions like they could just go to the bank and get it.
Get it, right.
So when we talk about LeBron James getting $97 million out of high school, I don't think people understand that. Like I learned early on in life, very few jobs are going to make you rich. They're going to make you a millionaire. Very few. When you step outside of entertainment, athletics, things like that, there's not a lot of jobs that you're going to go to. You're going to apply to them. You're going to go through a screening, drug test, boom, boom, and then boom, we're going to make you a millionaire. Very few.
Right.
Very few jobs. With that being said, you have some great jobs out there that can pay you very well. And you can be on those jobs 20, even 30 years. And guess what? You still wouldn't make a number like $97 million. So I think with the business of grassroots, and that numbers are thrown out there all the time. Dana brought up a good point. We were speaking earlier on how it's so funny how numbers, when it comes to basketball players, and I don't think it's I don't think it's coincidental, but the numbers of athletes basketball players is always exposed. Oh, Kobe Bryant is making $24 million. Oh, LeBron James is going to get such $1 million. Anthony Davis is going to make $14 million. But growing up, I never knew what Joe Montana made. Right. I never knew what Michael Jordan made. But then I started thinking back even more, and I just found it real ironic. It's always exposed of basketball players.
Right.
And people of color, for that matter. I never knew what Wayne Gretzky made. I never knew what John McEnroe made. But they exposed that, and again, that's the business part. Whether they say it's okay or it's not, but I don't know why someone's salary should be exposed. Like, for what? Why is that anyone's business? That's no different than how inappropriate it is that if me and you, Mark, are having lunch outside of Madison Square Garden, and a friend you may have from Wall Street walks in, we hit it off well. We talking, we kicking it, and I turn to him and say, how much money you make?
Right.
If it's inappropriate for me to ask him that, then it should be inappropriate knowing how much Carmelo Anthony makes. It's inappropriate. But again, that's the business that is basketball. Whether it's good or bad to someone else, that's their decision, that's their opinion. But to me, that aspect and exposing those numbers to parents and to handlers and to kids, they make it seem like it's so, it's right there. I could touch it. I could taste it, and you're nowhere near it.
Right. Well,
we're
going to wrap up. We're going to wrap up. You've given us a lot of information, a lot. But we got to wrap up with your historical basketball team. Now, in my previous podcast, we had like an all-star team.
You're a basketball historian. If you were to create your ultimate New York City basketball team, who would be your first pick?
Be my first pick?
Yeah.
I mean, it goes without saying. You know, Louis Ferdinand Alcindor. I mean, if you don't know who he is, that's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. To me, it's disrespect at this point. The disrespect for him and his dominance and what he's done in the game of basketball it'll never be repeated. And I mean, I always look at basketball, especially when people make it to the highest level, I look at it in a tier system from high school, college, and pros, and your dominance on all those levels. Now, people always say Michael Jordan is the greatest basketball player to ever play. I would go as far as saying Michael Jordan is the greatest NBA player, and that's debatable. I would agree with that, but I could find ways, as anyone knows me, to disagree with that. But Michael Jordan is arguably the greatest NBA player. But when you get to the college level, it's not close. Everyone knows it's Kareem Abdul-Jabbar. When you get to the high school level, for what he did, it's probably not even close. So when you got a guy that on all three levels, he's in the conversation as the greatest player, to me, it's a unanimous decision that Kareem Abdul-Jabbar is that. But he would be my, he would be my center. From there, as my point guard and any coach making a team, you're going to go inside and then go with a point, or you go with a point and then go inside. But Kenny Anderson, I mean, it's not, I don't think it's even close for what this man did on a high school level at 160 pounds soaking wet. I mean, think about it. Kareem was 7'1". He set the record at 6'1", 6'2", for Kenny Anderson to break his record. And please believe he had many restraints. You know, he didn't come in playing from day one, shooting up all the basketballs and, broke Kareem's record. Like, he didn't start as a freshman.
Right.
And matter of fact, I don't know too many coaches that if you have a star freshman on your team, he's not starting. And I've been doing my homework as of right now with all the greats around the country. Very few freshmen, including LeBron James that I've come across thus far, have averaged more than, like, LeBron averaged 21 as a high school freshman. And keep in mind, he was 6'8". Right. And Kenny Anderson's 23 points per game is still one of the highest freshman scoring averages that I've come across thus far. What he went to do on the college level, like, to this day, with all the great point guards we've seen be one and done, leave after 1 year, leave after 2 years, he is the last point guard to average 20 points and 8 assists as a freshman.
That's crazy.
So you talk your Derrick Roses, your Stephon Marbury's, John Walls, whoever you want to name. Whoever you want to name that's an all-star, been an all-star, Jason Kidd, you name them. They have not done that in college. You know what I'm saying? So that would be my point. My sleeper, and I think he's another one he's vastly underrated, Jamal Mashburn. From where Jamal Mashburn came from, what he used to look like, the dedication he made to his body and changing his body, seeing him with the Gauchos and seeing him at Cardinal Hayes just dominate, and then to go on to college and completely change who he was, his whole look, become a small forward and just dominate and be an All-American. Mash would be, believe it or not, Mashburn would be my small forward. No disrespect to Chris Mullin. I might make him my 2 if I had to name a shooting guard out of New York. It looking like we're fairly slow, but I mean, when you got big Kareem behind you and Kenny pushing the tempo, I need some shooters and I need some versatility. And then I mean, at my power forward, again, I'm a historian and I love history. Believe it or not, I think I would take Connie Hawkins. I think he's someone that's often forgotten. I know he had a gambling scandal, but that still didn't deter or take away from who he was and what he did. I mean, one of the first versatile power forwards, huge hands, did a lot with the ball. I think Connie Hawkins would have to definitely be in my first 5 out of New York City all time, just from that level. So, we
have Kenny Anderson, Chris Mullins, Mashburn, Hawk, and the captain.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
3 Hall of Famers, and Kareem, Connie, and Chris. And Mashburn was probably Kentucky, before Kentucky became Kentucky, was Kentucky.
Well, now, I mean, to the blue blood faithful that I'm sure somewhere is following you on Twitter, I'm not going to disrespect BBN Nation because you know they can get real, real antsy. Kentucky's been good a long time, but you're talking about
since the Hall years.
Yeah. Like they were good a long time. I mean, even go back to Adolph Rupp. You know what I'm saying?
Yep.
But at the same time, Jamal Mashburn is probably one of the top 5 players to ever play at Kentucky. So, and that's just, I mean, again, not to digress, and I know you're trying to end it like that. See, that's where I think people lack in history as well. Because if people did their history, they would know about the rich New York history at many schools. And that's why we have the reputation we have. Like, just off the top of my mind, New York has the all-time leading scorer, just off the top of my head, the University of Florida, Ron Williams, University of Texas, Terrence Rencher. We have numerous all-time leading scorers around the country at major universities. But I guess when people don't do their homework or they don't know, they choose not to know, but that's the pride aspect. That's the pride aspect to say, you know what, I'm from New York. Such and such is from New York, and he got busy here, so you know what, I want to get busy too. I'm going here, and I'm trying to do what he did. But I don't think enough people take that approach. I don't think enough people have that understanding, and it's a responsibility as well to say, you know what, I don't want to let down the guys that came before me from New York or from my city. So you know what, I got to do this the right way. So, I mean, coming together, it's easier said than done. But at the end of the day, if trust is not going to be had and not willing to be made, then no ground will be made. Because we could lay down a blueprint. We could lay down all the avenues, like I mentioned, that people that say, you know what, I'm going to step in and I'm going to get these kids right. But if people, family members, handlers, whoever, don't trust this person's word that he's going to do the right thing, it don't matter.
Right.
It don't matter. At that point, it's all rhetoric. It's just all talk.
Just talk.
So, all just talk.
We're going to wrap up. What's next for BI Report moving forward?
I got something soon. I got something in the making real soon. I've been underground, so to speak. Some people may say it, but one of the misconceptions, I definitely want people to understand and know about me in the sense of what I do in regards to evaluating kids. Like, I don't get caught up in ranking kids. Like I said, I have over 100 schools ranging from Vanderbilt, UCLA, Grand Canyon University, Minnesota, Seton Hall, Texas, Houston, Texas Tech, Tennessee State, University of Maryland, Baltimore County. You name it, like various schools. I'm not consulted upon for rankings. That's not my point. Because at the end of the day, a lot of times the coaches see the rankings that those machines put out. But if I've seen these kids more than they have, they ask me about these kids. I speak so emphatically about certain kids, and I'm so sure of myself because, number one, I think to get to a good place in life and anything that you're doing, you can't afraid to be wrong. Right. You can't afraid to be wrong. And I've been wrong before. I'm going to be wrong again some more, but I'm comfortable with that because I know it's a learning tool if I'm wrong. Learn why I was wrong, learn from that, and go forward. But what I'm also getting at is the fact that if you don't If I know you're not seeing something, how could you speak so emphatically upon? So I'll be the first to tell you, I've sat in the gym all July. I've seen some great basketball. I've seen some bad basketball. I'm not the type of person that can sit back and let a person that I know wasn't there speak on something. And it's second or third hand information. So now you and I both know when something is second or third hand information, it's like that old game we had in school that when the teacher started with one student in the front and they would pass the message behind them and go all the way around the class, that by the time that message got back to the teacher, that message has been remixed 3-4 times.
Right.
So when I take what I see, because there are two things in my life that have never lied to me, and that's my right eye and my left eye. and if I know I sat in the gym and I watched the kid, and then I came back later that night and watched him again, and woke up for a 7 o'clock, 8 o'clock in the morning game, and I watched him again, I know what I'm looking at. So I think the reality of people, if they want the best for their kids and they want the best for what's going on in New York City, they have to be honest with themselves. So that's why when I speak so emphatically on what I saw, that's not going to change my mind.
Right.
Because I know what I saw. And you can't tell me what I saw when I know you wasn't there. Now, if me and you sat together, Mark, and we watched the kids from the jump ball, we're going to talk about who we like and who we don't like. So then now we're almost looking at what we both don't like, and then we're going to turn to each other and we're going to talk about it either at halftime or at the end of the game. And that's good. That's good for the basketball acumen as well. That's good for the mind. That it's going to help you learn different nuances in the game that'll help your basketball mind grow. But when people don't want their minds to grow because they don't want to be wrong and they always want to be right, like that puts you in a particular space that's not really healthy, you know. So with myself, I mean, I'm constantly working. I have a couple events that I will be covering this coming weekend. John Lucas's 40-40 event. They have me coming down to cover that. Next weekend I will be down in Tampa for Each One Teach One's back to school breakout event. I'll be there for that. The following weekend from that, I will be then in Las Vegas with Las Vegas Prospects, and they have their back to school combine with some of the top players. Now, mind you, these are the top players, you know, in these respective cities. And then last weekend, I will be in Dallas for the Essentials, put on by Hoops DFW, as well as I then have to shoot to Phoenix for West Coast Elites event for the same thing in the West. So, I mean, it's ironic because all these events that I just named in these various cities put on by some great men, we don't have anything like that in New York.
Yeah, what led me to believe, which led to my next question, is when we're going to get the Team Footprints BR Reports event popping.
I promise you I got the blueprint, but it's going to go back to the key word that we just spoke about the last 45 minutes.
The trust word?
There you go. When people trust you to say, Mark is putting on an event, he has these evaluators, he has ESPN coming out, he has rivals coming out. Because keep in mind, this is how kids, when people do worry about that small thing of rankings, that's how it works. So I won't be at these events by myself. I'll probably be joined by, you know, Joe Francisco from ESPN, who covers the West Coast, Frank Burleson, who has his own private service, Hoops DFW, Carrot, he covers the Dallas area very well. All of us will be at these events. So if someone stands out and does well, that's how you get acknowledged. I'm sure by the time you release this, it'll be known to the general public. So I'm not ruining this, you know, for the kid. But Frank Jackson, he's committing to his university. I'm still going to leave that out because you may release this in the next hour, so I don't know. But Frank Jackson is...
I'll wait till 5 o'clock to release it.
Okay. By this time, Frank Jackson is committing to the University of Duke. However, I saw Frank Jackson last November. At that time, he had just decommitted from BYU. He tore the event up in Salt Lake City. And again, my job is not to make a school sign anyone, because that's one one jewel that Tom Kachowski has given me is you never want to overrate a kid. You never want to overtalk a kid. You want a kid to overplay some of the minor things that you may have said about him. That way, he doesn't underperform. So in Frank's case and in my service, I sent it out to a bunch of schools. And once he hit on the national radar, I mean, it just went through the roof. I mean, here's a kid where last year at the time he was top 75 player. At this point right now, through his performance, at the end of the summer, there's no doubt Frank Jackson is a top 10 player in the country.
Oh,
I don't care what nobody ranks him.
I had the luxury of seeing him at the Under Armour event, and
right.
Some heavy players out there, and he stood out.
Right, he's one of the top 10 players in this country. So, with that being said, that's what those events service. But it's unfortunate that, I mean, come on, New York, they have 3 million kids in New York City. With all the gyms available, you're trying to tell me that guys cannot trust someone, that whoever puts on a 1-2 day event, bringing these evaluators and scouts in to watch these kids play, that can't happen in New York? Because I don't know anyone in New York that's doing it. Now, all these other cities, they do these all the time. Right. Whether it's Denver, Dallas, Houston, Charlotte, Atlanta, St. Louis, Chicago, Philly, everywhere but New York. And my only question is, well, why not? And again, my only route to that is trust. So, I mean, I'm all for it. You tell me, Mark, we put on a such event at this time, or it's going to be all day Saturday, all day Sunday. No questions asked. I'm there. No questions asked. That goes without saying. So, but yeah, I'll be covering that, and then when I get my news, I'll definitely be the first to come back to you and break it to you and get it out to the public, and that'll be another interview in itself on my next mission and my next plan. But look for some news very, very soon, brother.
Sounds good, man. I appreciate the knowledge you dropped today, and I'm sure that our listeners will also. And we'll release this at 5 o'clock after the big announcement today. And here we are on September 1st. We'll release it at September 1st at 5 o'clock.
Gotcha.
Thank you, sir.
I got you, and I appreciate everything with you guys. And you guys can always, follow for my difference of opinion on things and my different sense of humor from your average national scout and evaluator. You can follow me at BI Reports on Twitter. If you have any questions or you have any concerns or any help with anything, because I've never in my life charged a parent, for some solid advice. I mean, I'm a gentleman I graduated from college. I went to junior college route. I went there. I graduated from there. I graduated from high school. So everything that you would want your child to do, I've done it. So that's why I also feel that, I can definitely have a voice in this. But you can email me as well at bi.reports@yahoo.com. And I'll get back to you definitely in a timely manner. But thank you for the time and thank you for the platform, and I appreciate everything, Mark.
Thank you, man. Appreciate it.
All right, boss.
There you have it. Another New York City mover and shaker. Thank you for tuning into this podcast. This is Mark Williams, FOOTPRINTZ Basketball, the MECCA.